Hello.
Yes, David, please go ahead.
Yeah. हे प्रेमळ पित्या, आम्हा वसईतील सर्व ख्रिश्चन व्यावसायिकांना बसिंग ख्रिश्चन बिझनेस असोसिएशनच्या नावाने एकत्रित केल्याबद्दल आम्ही तुझे आभार मानतो. आमच्या असोसिएशनच्या पदाधिकाऱ्यांना तू दूरदृष्टी आणि कृपा दे. त्यांना आलेल्या संकटावर मात करून सभासदांना चांगल्या तऱ्हेने मार्गदर्शन व प्रेरणा द्यावी म्हणून तुझी विशेष कृपा दे. हे प्रभू येशू, तुझ्या नावाने सभासदांनी ख्रिस्ती मूल्यानुसार एकजुटीने एकमेकांसाठी व्यवसाय संधी निर्माण करून मदत करावी व व्यावसायिक समृद्धी बरोबरच आमची आध्यात्मिक प्रगती व्हावी म्हणून तुझी विशेष कृपा आम्हास दे. हे पवित्र आत्म्या, आमच्या भावी पिढीतील मुलांना आम्ही आदर्श बनावे. आमच्या व्यावसायिक कार्याद्वारे वसईची
आमच्या भावी पिढीतील मुलांना आम्ही आदर्श बनावेत. आमच्या व्यावसायिक कार्याद्वारे वसईची व सर्व सभासदांची उत्तरोत्तर प्रगती व्हावी अशी प्रार्थना आम्ही तुझकडे करतो. हे आमच्या स्वर्गीय बापा, तुझे नाव पवित्र मानले जाओ, तुझे राज्य येवो, जसे स्वर्गात तसे पृथ्वीवरही तुझ्या इच्छेप्रमाणे हो. आमची दररोजची भाकर आज आम्हाला दे, आणि जसे आम्ही आमच्या अपराध करणाऱ्यांना क्षमा करतो तसेच तूही आमच्या अपराधांची क्षमा कर, आणि मला मोहात पडू देऊ नकोस, पण वाईटापासून आम्हाला सोडव. आमेन. So just to briefly introduce all the participants about BCBA. It was a movement of Christian business persons which was formed and commenced its working in September 2016. It has been registered for charitable purpose under Societies Registration Act. Objective is to unite Christian business persons and to create possibilities of self-employment for the society as whole. We have monthly networking meetings for members. So far, we have completed 53 such meetings. Currently, we have 300 plus registered members. Registration is also possible online at bcba.co.in. We have opportunities for webinars, member presentation, stalls, discounts, and there's a sense of belonging. So that's what, in brief, BCBA is. In today's participants, as you can see on the screen, there were about 39-40 registrations. Out of this, 46% participants are in business. About 29% of participants are professionals, independent consultants or architects or chartered accountants or doctors, etc. We have 8% of participants, in numbers there are 3, who are into teaching profession. They are teachers or professors. And we have 17% participants who are others, who are employed, housemakers, retired students, etc. So now I invite Harman D'Souza to take the session ahead by introducing today's speaker.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Doctor, thank you so much for accepting the invitation and being with us today. Oh my God, Doctor, this profile is too big. I think we can write a book on the profile itself. But let me introduce you in a very short 2-3 sentences. Dr. S. Srinivasan, Chief Learning Officer, Wockhardt Foundation. He has an MBBS, MD, Medicine from University of Pune. He has over 4 decades of experience in healthcare, human behavior, and their countless interplays and ramifications. I have a big list. I won't be able to read it today, but definitely I can share it to anyone who wants. Dr. Srinivasan is a natural orator, a motivator, author of 7 books on health, lifestyle, and philanthropy. He is an ex-Aventis Pharma Vice President. He is ex-editor of the Indian Practitioner and former co-editor of Wokat Medical Times, and many, many more. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us and accepting our invitation for this webinar.
Thank you.
Now, let us start with the first question. We have a first question for
Harman
you.
sir, Harman sir,
Yes.
we are ahead of time. So if you permit and with the permission of doctor, can I run a small poll for 2 minutes?
Fine.
Yes,
I'm-
please,
I'm
please, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So here is the poll, as you can see on your screen. How much are you concerned about your health? So 1 is extremely low. I'm not at all concerned about my health. And 10 is extremely high, very much concerned about my health. So we have 1 minute. Sorry, I think there was technical error. Please go ahead. Please select the option again, please. So more than 50% of participants have voted so far. So we end this poll in next 10 seconds. It would be good if everyone participates. All right, so we end here, and these are the results. So we have 38% who say they are extremely concerned about their health. We have 23% who are in the category of 6, 15% in 7, and 31% in 8. So, doctor, it is good that everyone is concerned about their health. Now, I have next poll. How would you rate about your actions for caring your health? Where 1 says, the 1 is no actions at all. And number 10, if you select 10, says I'm taking all possible actions to care for my health. So we end this poll in next 5 minutes, 5 seconds. And here is the result. So doctor, there are 47% is the highest number, 47% of the participants, they say that, they are in the category of 7. So where they say they are taking actions to care for their health. We have 6% who has given number 3. 6% has said 5, 18% at 6. And we have 12% who say they are taking all possible actions to care for their health. Thank you, and over to you, Harman sir and doctor.
Yes. So, doctor, there is this first question to you from all of us. What is your view, or how secure do you think is over-the-counter medicine? That is, for the layperson to understand, whatever medicine which we take directly from the medical stores without the doctor's prescriptions, whatever medicines we take directly from the medical store without the prescription doctors, the over-the-counter medication, how much secure do you think it is, doctor?
Well, at the outset, many thanks to all of you. You have been extremely kind and hospitable and humorous as well. So I'm enjoying it. Thank you. Okay, now to come to your question about the secure OTC drugs. The word secure has many connotations. In the general parlance, we are talking of safety and security. And in the world of pharmacology, the word secure is not used as such. It's used in terms of, frequency of side effects or otherwise. Here I must say that OTC does not at all mean that the medical world is treating these as second-class citizens, not at all. So the general impression that OTC is below par, or it is a stepmotherly treatment should be given to that, is wrong. Because the regulatory or the registration phenomenon of the process is equally stringent and strict for both OTC drugs and prescription drugs. So very, very briefly, OTC drugs are as secure as non-OTC drugs. So you can go ahead and use them within the limits of toxicity. So take, for example, crocin. It is extremely safe. I say extremely safe, fully conscious of the word that extremely. But even that has a limit. If you cross that, you would injure yourself, you would damage your kidneys, you damage your liver also. So they are safe, they are secure. Did I answer your question? Hello?
Yes, doctor.
Okay. Next one.
The next question is, now you know everybody who has been able to have an access to Google, anything which is told by doctor to them, they start Googling it. And what is your opinion about this self-medication and Google diagnosis without going to a doctor, before going to a doctor or after coming from a doctor, underestimating a doctor and going for Google medication and Google diagnosis? What do you have to say about this trend, doctor?
Well, I might have to disappoint you with the type of answer I would give, because I'm not going to give you the answer that you would expect. Do you know, can you go to the previous slide again? Okay, self-medication, no, it's okay, leave it here. Do you know even doctors go through Google before they see a patient? Let me repeat. Do you know that doctors themselves go through a Google search before they examine a patient and treat him? And almost 70 to 80% of doctors, before taking on a patient for diagnosis and treatment, go through Google. Now, Google doesn't necessarily mean Google per se. There are enough sources of authentic information, say like Mayo Clinic proceedings, or New England Journal of Medicine, or WebMD, or even Lancet and BMJ, which are not now available in digital format. Every doctor invariably goes through this in between seeing patients, or after finishing seeing a patient, or even before. So the so-called Google diagnosis is already in, it is already on. We cannot stop the trend. We cannot ask a doctor to ask the patient not to do Google, because ultimately it is in the best interest of the patient himself. So I would say it is very good. Instead of rummaging through, printed papers, hard copies of articles, these people are exploiting the ease and convenience of going through digital references, which is very good. All in all, I would say it's very good. I won't say it is bad at all. Now, when a patient starts taking these medicines without examination, then it is bad. The question of acquiring knowledge about possible therapies is very legitimate. It should continue. It will increase. But when it comes to therapy, one has to be a little more circumspect. That's how it is. So all in all, it's pretty good. I would encourage it. I am 77 running and I encourage it. So you can imagine how about the other doctors who are in their 50s and 60s. Yeah. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, doctor. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you want to say that the Google diagnosis and Google search is not so harmful or not very bad?
It's good. It's very good. In fact, that instills a sense of inquisitiveness, scientific approach to the patient and to the disease. Otherwise, many doctors, all through the decades and years, many doctors would very cursorily examine and very cursorily dismiss the patient. ठीक है, हो जाएगा, ठीक होना है, मुझे पता हो जाएगा. That approach, that casual approach is gone. Everybody, the same is true in other areas. When a teacher goes to the class to teach boys and girls in the 7th and 8th standards, she's going through the same thing. I was an advisor to,
What about the fake information or the contradictory information which is available on Google? What do we do about that?
Correct. Now, when contradictory information is put up on the net, it is normally with the proviso that every drug has its good and bad effects, just like every individual has good and bad effects. And that's why the actual caretaking or the individual who is fully legally responsible for managing the patient has to be kept informed of both. So if you have a balanced approach toward safety and efficacy of drug, you're fine. You see, even the best of medicines have side effects, but you should be aware of them. And if they are put on the same screen, it's fine, no problem at all. The problem with social media nowadays, which is now about what, 5 or 6 years old, not more than that, they create problems. They blow up by bad effects of drugs and so forth, and then present it as though, oh my God, the world is coming to an end, and this doctor is merely prescribing drugs, which is nonsense, which is very unfair to the doctors and also to the drug companies. The government of India, the governments of all responsible countries very clearly put out both sides. They say 80% efficacy, 15% this and that. It is absolutely fine, no problem. Does it answer your question, sir?
Yes, doctor, yes. Now, having said that, let us come to a conclusion that Google diagnosis along with the doctor's advice is not so bad as per doctor.
Yes.
Now, very interesting question for you, doctor. We, since this COVID-19 crisis, we have been hearing the other side theories about theories floating in the media that it's a planned scandal or a medical scam by vested interest in the world. COVID-19 does not exist. Some people say COVID-19 is not as harmful as they have been projecting it, and various theories. What do you have to say about this, doctor?
Another very good question. Very good question. Now, see, let's look at the community health affected by a virus which has been let loose, literally like a wolf among a pack of sheep. And people feel, oh my God, this virus is coming and destroying everything. And that kind of, sorry to say, nonsensical approach is resorted to only by social media. Only social media with malicious, mischievous intent puts out such things. And nowadays, it's the social media which are dominating the ordinary media. Your Times of India, your Indian Express, etc., have been completely cowed down by yesterday reports. And people are falling for it. Because for TRP, people sensationalize the news, they overclaim or they give bad names, they do trolling, and they do all kinds of things. So, I would not say that media coverage is bad again, just like we saw a little while ago. Media coverage is good, provided we don't get swayed by it. And it's a pity that even today, educated, knowledgeable, cultured people who are in the middle socio-economic group, they see something on WhatsApp and then jump up and down all over the place. My son-in-law in Chennai, he sent it to 2,000 people. And most of them reacting totally negatively and totally immature. So I would say it is not the media, it is the social media, which is outside of the control of any agency. Now, this government is trying to control that. Now, again, people are shouting, oh my God, this is censorship, you are gagging us and all that stuff. I don't agree with that. The way we have gone, it's like a pendulum, it swings. It swings and it cannot stop swinging until it reaches the other end, and then again it starts swinging. You cannot stop this. You can't stop people from reading your, Martindale or the British Journal of Pharmacology, they will do that. The idea is to make their responses more responsible. That the process is just starting. Mind you, we are in this era for not more than 5 years, and we have a long, long way to go before we mature. So I would say it's fine. It's part of growing up. And in the meantime, what all political games people play, that we have to see. Now, to come back to this virus, it's fine. I mean, even with the worst of viruses or bacteria, not everybody is going to die. If you and I cross the road and I inhale the same bacteria that you are inhaling, you may live, I may be gone, and vice versa. So this kind of thing will be there. People have to become more mature. It takes time. I am optimistic. And this again, this answer your question, sir.
Yes, doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Doctor, so as you know, we are a business group who started this organization, Muslim Christian Business Association. So one question for you is, what are the business opportunities in a medical field for a non-medical background person?
Okay. Do you know? You can answer.
Excuse me, sir. Can I request if we can see your face clearly, because it was just, I mean, cutting halfway.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah. Now this is much better, sir. Much better.
Okay. I didn't even see that I was actually.
Yeah. No problem. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for bringing it up. Now the question is, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, the question is, what are the business opportunities?
Oh, great, wonderful.
Yeah.
My favorite question, in fact, that takes me closer to my own field of interest, what I call as wellness. And if you spend some time, if we get time on some other occasion, I can share more data and more information with you on this. Now, what is happening is, the medical practice is no longer purely medical. What did I say? Medical practice, but the medical nahi hai. You'll say, what is this? This old man has lost his focus. More and more people are now, especially people of the middle social order, like you and me. I'm a middle class guy, I don't know if you're rich. But these people are now suffering from conditions which are not even diseases. Now, these are called as behavioral disorders, or occupational disorders or variances, and so forth. For example, you and I are not feeling well. You go to a doctor, and what does the doctor do? Even before looking at your pulse, he is putting you through any number of tests. It will be ECG, it will be serum chemistry, it will be some Doppler something, it will be some other fancy test, and then the doctor is in the meantime getting his cough is filled. And when the reports come, 90% of the time the reports are normal. You heard me? Read my lips as this is what I would say. 90% of the reports are normal, but then the patient is unhappy, patient is grudgy, complaining, and then saying, oh my God, this is bad, that's bad. And this is what we call as behavioral type of a problem. And for this, your medicines are not going to help. And the irony of it is that the patient comes back to the doctor with all the reports. He'll say, no, all these reports are normal. What kind of a doctor are you? So the doctor goes on the defensive. Then instead of saying that, it's all because of lifestyle, he simply says, okay, take this tablet. Take it for 3 months, your cholesterol will come down. Take it for 4 months, your blood pressure will come down. Check your blood sugar 3 times. This kind of a thing is only perpetuating the inappropriate ways of management. That is where we are now entering an era of not medicine per se, but an era of wellness. Now, in wellness, you take a holistic view. Now, if I say holistic, don't get it wrong. It's not a religious or a spiritual connotation. You have got to control or look at your body, mind, and soul all together. Only then you can control the problem. Like, I won't take too long. I can run a workshop on this, which I do many times. If your patient is all right and if he's not all right at the same time, in other words, he's confused, he may end up confusing you, and he may end up forcing you to do things which are not required. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes.
me? Please?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We can
Yes,
hear you.
yes, doctor.
So
We can hear you.
this is the realm of what we call as wellness. Now, this is not to be treated with medicine alone, especially not with powerful allopathic drugs. It is to be treated or managed. I would even say treated. It is to be managed using less and less of medical intervention and more of, mind and soul involvement and management. You may find it a little vague, but it is not, because only 30% of your problem at this very moment, let me repeat, your problem and my problem will not or may not be gone with medicines, but they have to be managed with your body, mind, and soul approach. And this is beginning to happen. And this market is a $3 trillion market as of now. It is going to 5 trillion, heard me wrong? Get it right. Trillion dollars, US dollars. And that is where so many other things come. Alternative systems of medicine. Some of them end up in the hands of quacks, and some of them are very genuine. For example, we know that if you are resorting to pranayama, or if you are resorting to breath control, if you are resorting to various other ways of controlling your body and mind, you do mindfulness meditation, not just to commercial meditation, etc., etc. Now, with these things coming up, our medical practice is changing, and it will change beyond recognition. We should be ready for that, and we should have an open mind. Put it simply, don't keep insisting on tablets and injections. Don't insist on medications. Medications will take you down the wrong path. I'm talking about us, our middle class, social middle class people. We will go down the wrong way if we insist on medication. And every doctor writes a lot of medication because he's getting commission from the companies and he's keeping the patient happy. Patient is happy. 50-year-old lady with arthritis, she's happy only if she gets a tablet. And if you try to tell her, madam, at your age, some problems are going to be there with your joint and everything else. She says, no, I want a drug, please control me. So they are part of the problem. In short, it's a very complex interplay of psychology and value systems, and of course a little bit of medicine that will take you through this. And we have to learn to live with this. This is the modern approach towards medicine. Now, to come back to your question, there is more money in this non-pharmaceutical domain, and that is growing at 30, whatever number of percentages that you can, at $3 trillion values being mentioned. You should not enter medical practice, or you should not enter medical market. You should enter wellness market. And it's growing, but very slowly. The concept of wellness itself will have to be hammered down in the throats and minds of people. And then they should be put to use. And wellness, if I were you, now to come back to your question, sorry, I'm taking a long time to answer it because the question is a little complicated. Don't enter medical field. You don't need to be a doctor to handle all this. In fact, if you're a doctor, it is a hindrance. So the so-called medical versus non-medical thing you're talking about, non-medical people are minting money. The big corporate hospitals are built by non-medical people. There is no medical guy sitting there except to treat. And he always fails in management. For management and to make a successful business, people are going only to executive, healthcare executives. There are MBAs and very complicated medical management, hospital management and diagnostic management, thyrocare and stuff like that. And they are all run by non-medical. I would say, in short, sorry, I'm taking time. Forget medicine. Medicine by itself is highly controlled. The profit margins are cut across very severely. And whatever you get, half of it is taken away by the hospital. And you end up getting 10%. Whereas in this wellness area, where there is no price control, there is more innovative marketing involved, which is legitimate marketing, mind you. Things are looking up a lot more. And these 13 or 30, whatever trillion dollars I'm talking about is only going to increase. So again, this is answer your question. I know it is longish.
Doctor, we have enough time. Getting into more detail of these things, can you particularly mention what exactly the business model could be, or what exactly the business could be in little more details? At least
Sure.
can you mention 2 to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 number wise, some businesses which we could like to explore as a business community here?
Yeah, now if you're talking of business, the umbrella term of wellness is something that I would like. I'm saying the same thing in different words. If you want your son to become a doctor, I would say don't make him a doctor. You wonder why is Johnny talking like this? If you conventionally go by the medical route where your son gets an MBBS and MD and then he goes to Boston to get further complicated degrees and so forth, by the time he comes back to India, or if he comes at all, by the time he settles down, he is in his 40s, okay, yet to get married, yet to settle in life, and the overall business approach that you would expect when a doctor goes and earns a degree and then he comes back and earns, hardly 10% of people make money in medicine. Let me repeat, hardly 10% of people are making legitimate money and legitimate profit. The rest of the medical things are going to all others. Your service providers, your diagnostic people, and your softer areas of medical practice, So, if you really have somebody who says, okay, here are my $10, you tell me where to put those $10. I can get you the best of medical seats in KEM Hospital, or best medical something in even Boston, why not? I would say don't put your money there. Don't put your money in so-called medical domain. Put your money in managing health. What did I say? Don't put your money in medicine. Put your money wherever you can manage health. I'm in a way doing that. Although I am an MBBS and MD, I went through, I'm 77 now, as I told you. I've gone through the drill and rigmarole of full-fledged medical career. And I'm telling you now, don't enter medicine directly. Get into paramedical areas, supportive areas, like your Deepak Chopra, who can offer better value for money than just an X-ray report or some scan. Go there. You'll say, will it really fetch my money? I would say doubly. Your spend on medical education is far too high anyway, and you are spending on medical education where you acquire skills which are not really that relevant in tomorrow's world. Then why do you have to go and spend 2 crores? There are people spending 2 crores on their children getting a medical degree. I said half that money you put in whatever savings, you put it in bonds, shares, and just in lousy fixed deposit you put there, you get better results, better returns. So, as an experiment, if you want to plan a career for your children or whatever, put that money up front, even 2/3, 66% money you put in fixed assets or whatever. The rest you play with and then see if you can get a medical degree or not. And at the end of 4 or 5 years, be ready not to have a tail like MBBS or an MD or an MS, but to have any of these diplomas, really value-added services which are going to give to the patient. The patients are going to benefit more, say like, mind control or awareness, and that brings us to lifestyle medicine. Today, 90% of problems are lifestyle related, and you are running after medicines for lifestyle related things, and your lifestyle will not change. For example, I'll give you a little bit of a controversial example. You say, what is lifestyle medicine? I don't know. Yeah, I know what is it. The way I live my life. The way you live. What is your lifestyle? See, I go to bed only around 11:30 at night. That's my lifestyle. Why? Because I'm busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm socializing, I'm on WhatsApp, I'm blah, blah, blah. Then you say, if you go to bed only at 11, and if you are not ending up with hypercholesterolemia or hyperglycemia, then you are a superhuman. You say, why do you say that? I would say, if you're going to bed so late, okay, normally you would have had a heavy dinner. Normally you would have had a couple of pegs, or even 5 or 6 or 7 pegs. Somebody is driving you back home and you're not driving yourself. And then you do this once, twice, thrice, 4 times. Then your body has gotten into a new gear where alcohol is playing a significant role and destroying your enzymes in the liver. And you've got other things creating problems with blood lipids and so on. Then what do? You learn to sleep properly. Now, how do you sleep properly? You try to go to sleep at 9:30. You see 9:30? Are you a sissy? Does anybody go to bed at 9:30? What nonsense, you know? But do you know, sleep deprivation is the malady in today's world. Whether you're an airline pilot or whether you're just an 8th standard fellow playing computer games and also trying to do some little bit of homework, you know, you are walking into trouble. And that is, yeah. So that is out and out due to lifestyle. Now, if you want to modify your lifestyle, you learn to get up early in the morning. The guy who is going to go to sleep at 11:30, do you think he's going to get up at 4:30 in the morning? It's absurd. So he's going to get up at 8:39. He doesn't have a breakfast. He just runs up and down. And then you gulp some coffee and run to the office. And your mind is already all watched up. You know, you're groggy. Yeah. And your judgment goes for a toss. And overall, you are in the foul mood. And if you're sitting in a meeting and taking a decision, the quality of the decision is going to be so horrible. You know, you could cause enough damage sitting on your desk. You don't even have to fly a plane to damage other people's health. You can sit in your desk and you can end up with. Yeah.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor, now coming back, these questions will take, the participants' questions will be taken one by English, sir.
Okay.
But doctor, coming back to the particularity of asking you again that which exactly business model is there, what we are expecting an answer from you is, what exactly business models are there? For example, do you want us to invest in X-ray machines? Do you want paramedical fields?
No. Sir,
what are the business opportunities in medical field?
I get it. Sir, you are looking at gadgets.
Details of exact business model. What exactly?
No, that,
how
is
money going to generate for common people like us?
See, you cannot look at the individual business opportunities. You have to take an actual case by case. Supposing, no, let's get to specifics. I'm a guy and I have got 2 crores to spare. And my son is wanting to get into medicine. And he says, Dad, give me 2 crores. He said, no, we'll all starve to death. He said, no, I don't give me 2 crores. Give me 1.5 crores. Okay? The problem starts there. You start investing in the wrong place on the wrong things. And your problem is already started. Now, you do proactive budgeting and then say the type of planting. Let's look at the planting. Planting is in Vasai Road, or it can be in Timbuktu, or it can be in Dadar, whatever. Now, what kind of disease patterns are you going to expect? And where you are likely to earn money with better return on income, okay, return on investment, return on investment, not income. You identify those areas. You can't go to Pedder Road and practice medicine as though you are in Dharavi. Now you have to do a little bit of reconnaissance. You have to do a little bit of scouting to see where you are going to fit, and then how much can you spend on this. And the same 1.5 crores, sir. I would say, get into a yoga center, get into similar allied areas of mind-body medicine support. And with lesser investment, with less than 1 crore or even 0.5 crore, you start getting better returns on your investment. This is an example. Now, this will vary from place to place. If you are going to be sitting in a hospital, now, first of all, nobody is going to ask you to invest money on an X-ray machine. That is all taken care of by corporates. You don't know them. All your treatment of the thing is hijacked by corporates. People like you and me have no place. Unlike, say, 20 years ago, you and me are manageable, disposable commodities. The corporates with their stock market and share value going up and so forth. People are buying up medicines, not as an individual, as a corporate. because they are very clever. Only the smart guys will go there and they can afford to pay all this. Every 2 years they'll change their machine. MRI machine they'll change every 15 months, whatever. And you don't have to worry about your investment. You only worry about your investment on the concern. It's your son ultimately. He is your son. You love it. He loves you. So you want to give him the best. So you say, I'll give him 1.5 crores of this. Utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. This is what many people are doing. I am shocked to see that even today people are spending upwards of 2 crores to get their son a doctorate, a degree like MBBS, which is not even worth the piece of paper on which it is printed. Instead, you become more direct, get into the community aspect of it, get into the body and the soul part of it. I can give you concrete examples of how you save money under medical umbrella, and you save money under these body, mind, and soul things. And I sort of recommend, if a 55-year-old lady wants to swallow tablets to kill arthritis, I'll call her ill-advised, or I'll say, madam, you are barking up the wrong tree. You don't keep on pumping in pills, okay, on a 50-year-old or 60-year-old lady who has got knee joint arthritis and she wants to go for a joint replacement, and she's fighting with her husband or daughter-in-law, and she's a nervous wreck. She can't work, she can't walk, she can't do anything. And she wants to pump in more and more of those painkiller tablets, and then at the end of the night, the day, they'll come and say, oh my God, my arthritis is still not gone. I've got 3 examples right now of the sales tax commissioners. You can imagine how much money sales tax commissioners was getting. And that lady is decked in jewelry all through. From top to toe, she is only covered by gold and platinum. And now she's crying. I know of a guy in Pune who is in the stock market. His daily earnings run into lakhs. He wants to pop in pills. Okay, these are examples I gave.
So, doctor, in short, you mean to say, cutting it very short for the latecomers, late joiners, you want to say that instead of investing in the medical field, direct medical field, you can invest your money in the body, mind, soul, and wellness industry.
Not you can, you should. Not you can, you should.
We got the message very loud and clear that you are very much for investment of your money in the wellness industry. So anybody who's attending now today, if you want to go into more detail about the wellness industry investment, we can contact directly doctor. Doctor, let us go to the last and the I think the most important question. What according to you is the secret of a healthy, strong and a long life?
I run programs on this. Okay, I'll quickly run through a few slides. Okay.
Yes, doctor.
Now, could you go to the previous slide? Previous. Okay, now go to the next one. Go to the next one. Next one. Okay. Everybody wants to live long. I do. I am 77 and I'm repeating this. I'm 77. I still want to live another 20 years. My daughter-in-law may not like it, but okay, that's life. That's divine creation. Now you look at body, mind, and soul together in synchrony. Okay, then some thought processes will start. Now I have created my own formula, if you like. Next slide, please. This is my own formula on which I have conducted seminars and talks and interactive whatever. This I call 5S management. 5S management. What do you manage in this 5S? The first item you manage is what? Is what? Sleep.
Sleep.
You manage your sleep.
Yeah.
My dear, whether it is husband to wife or wife to daughter-in-law or whatever, my dear young man, my dear lady, my dear not so young lady, learn to sleep properly. And that lady will say, what nonsense are you talking about, man? You lost your... And then I say, give me my consultation fees, 300 rupees, she will throw you out of the door. I didn't pay you 300 rupees only to learn to manage sleep. What nonsense, sleep? But do you know, ladies and gentlemen, managing sleep is the toughest. The toughest. Okay? Now, at night, for example, yeah, I'll give a quick example. Once I was doing a seminar in for Coimbatore, Larsen and Toubro. And Coimbatore, those days, was not a very heavily trafficked city, so you could comfortably move around in two-wheelers and three-wheelers or four-wheelers. And the office will finish by, say, 6. And the fellow will go home, whichever way. And then he goes to sleep at 10:30. So what? Your office closes at 5:30 or whatever. And you go to sleep at 10:30. What do you do? He said, I know, I do this, I do that. I said, what do you mean by you do this, you do that? And that fellow wastes 5 hours of his precious time every single day. And he's watching something or the other. And his children, big or small or whatever, sit with him till they get dog tired and they fall asleep, etc., etc. So this fellow, knowingly, volitionally, voluntarily, consciously, deliberately is screwing up the methodology of your sleep. The problem starts there. Today, only on sleep management, I can run a full day program for you. You learn to sleep and you learn to manage sleep. And you know what? In the process of managing your sleep, you are managing all else in life. Supposing you say, I want to go to sleep at 10. Some people will laugh. Some people will say, ha, bichara hai. In the process, what are you doing? You are saying no to late dinners. And by learning to say no to late dinners, you are also saying no to alcohol in more than a peg or two, or even that is a and then you learn to say what? What do you say to sex? You will see, we'll come to that now. And then you learn to keep your physical fitness going. And then you also manage your snacks, spirits, etc. We'll take a quick look at this before we conclude. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Now, we all have sleep debt. What do we have? Sleep debt. We know money debt. I borrowed 2 lakhs from the bank and I'm not paying it back. So I've got a money debt. Now with sleep, we have the same problem. We are supposed to sleep for 7 to 8 hours, which we don't. And if you keep on accumulating this sleep debt, you'll have problems with your body chemistry, your sugar, your cholesterol, your other hormones, your blood pressure, your obesity, etc. They all get disturbed if you incur sleep debt, D-E-B-T. Next slide, please. After sleep, I have put, you know what here? What have I put here? What do you see there? What do you see here? You see
a happy couple.
How do you know they are happy? They are a couple, all right. Yeah, they are holding hands. But you know,
Yeah, that is.
Maybe the father-in-law is around to see, or the mother-in-law is around to see you. Anyway, sex. Do you know today, in spite of all your open programs of all kinds of, all kinds of programs, sex is supposed to be an open topic, but it is not. It has still not lost its closeness and the so-called mystique around it, and many of the problems relate to sex. Now again, on this we can run workshops and I can prove to you that, I mean, you yourself know, I don't have to prove to you, come on. How sex plays a background role in thoroughly disturbing your body physiology and mind-body soul equation. So learn to manage sex. Next slide. So there is an expression called DINK. Yeah? One American Secretary of State coined this word. That is double income, no kids. That is what? Double income, no kids. No kids, no children. He said, okay, take care. And what is it? DINS, double income, no. Double income, no. Come on.
No.
Double income, no sex.
Sex.
You heard me? Kaan khol ke suno. Double income, no kids. Your bank account, keeps on swelling. You have crores and crores. Because you have no kids, you've got double income. You blow it the way you want, or you don't blow it, whatever. And double income, no sex is becoming increasingly common. Double income, no sex. This again was a Western phenomenon, but today it is no longer a Western phenomenon. And either the man is tired and says, "Not tonight, darling," or the woman says the same thing, "Not tonight, darling." She will say, "Darling," and man will say, "Darling." Otherwise the problem is the same. So you have to learn to manage that. And this is affecting your body biochemistry. Next slide. Physical fitness. Next slide. Then eating. I put down eating almost till the end, but it is very important. Eating has to be looked at conjointly with eating. What did I say? Snacks. Did I say snacks? I didn't say snacks. I'm saying it now. I didn't say meal. I didn't say food. I said snacks. Because 80% of our meal consumption is in the form of snacks. How do you manage that? If you manage it properly, your snacking habits will improve and your eating habits will also improve. Next slide, please. And of course, the inevitable alcohol. I wouldn't say don't drink. I would say drink, but sensibly. And drink, keeping your sleep intact. You say, how is it possible? Yeah. How can I keep my sleep intact and drink? You have to find a way out. And you have to get a support person for that. You take the help of a support person. Don't do anything on your own. And if you say, I don't have a support person, I'll say, okay, go create a support person. Go get one. I won't say go buy one. I say go create one. Go get one. After getting a support person, your behavior improves. You sleep longer and better. Your serum cholesterol comes down. You'll say, kya, shaadi ka brokerage karne aaya. You'll think that I'm trying to sell my wedding brokerage. No, it's not that. There is scientific proof behind all that. Okay, next slide, please. Now, if you manage these 5 A's, a quick word on today's problem. I just now told you, where do you invest your money? I told you invest 60 to 70% of your money, investable money, not in medicine per se. If somebody gave you the best medical degree in KEM Hospital in Mumbai, don't fall for it. Okay. Now, these are called lifestyle disorders. Cancer, high blood pressure, cholesterol, etc., etc. Next slide, please. Business ops, excellent in wellness domain. Growth rate is faster than in pharma. Next slide. We are finishing now. The wellness industry has emerged as a thriving sector in the past 10 years. Next slide. The overall wellness market in India is estimated as Indian rupees 490 billion, which is a whopping amount of money. And it is growing faster than Indian pharma market, which is only 15%, was as of last month. And many of the pharma market related expenses and investments and other things, you go under different heads. So you look at only medicine, that's not going to give you the right figure. But you can look at ORG, you can get authentic data. And you will very soon see, ultimately it is your money, no? You forget all the statistics from Dalal Street. It is your money. Your dear son is waiting for you to invest. And you are going to tell him, okay, Johnny, take 1.5 crores and put it in some stupid MBBS degree. You say, Dad, I'm going getting the best of MBBS degree. But do you know how many of them come back and cry? 90% of doctors are crying because they are not able to recover their investment. Anyway, you will see. So this is where I stand and we stand the way I think we should stand. Now, the one last word is, it may be as simple as something staring at your face, but the problem is, like all things that stare at your face, you don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to communicate the importance of wellness. And therefore you are barking up the wrong tree. You say, I sent my son to, Chicago. Where to Chicago? Some school. That Chicago school is good for nothing. You have spent, thousands of rupees or dollars on airfare and all other things, simply because you want a foreign tag to your son. That stupid, boastful expression. Mulka kya karta? America there. Going to America is the end all be all of everything in life. Americans are karta ka hai. They bagna that you can do better in India and you can still save money. I can show you blow by blow accounts of how you spend your money and how do you get your return on the money. I'm not a finance guy. I won't pretend to be a finance guy. But I'm only talking about your investment in medical field. I'm not talking about other fields. I won't say anything about computer digital field. Even that is changing. That is changing a lot, etc. Okay. So, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful time and wonderful session we had. Before handing it over to Nilesh for the question answer sessions, I take this opportunity to thank you for on behalf of BCBA. Having you with us today was an honor for us,
Thank you.
and I would like to share with everyone how friendly and how energetic and how enthusiastic you were all the way since we had planned this webinar from last 2 months.
Thank
I
you.
was so happy and so grateful to be in touch with you every day.
Of course.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. About doctors' details or doctors' websites or doctors' card, anybody who wants these details can contact us, BCBA. And once again, thank you, Doctor, on behalf of BCBA community, business community. Nilesh, over to you for the question answer sessions.
Yes, sir. So we have a few questions over the chat, and I would like to take them. But before that, we are also honored to have Dr. Jayashree and Dr. Aditya Muna with us. So thank you, Dr. Jayashree, and thank you, Dr. Aditya. So we have a question from Mrs. Amita Karwalo. Amita madam she is in a teaching profession. Now the question is, allopathic medicines do not cure but only suppresses symptoms of an illness. How much of this statement is true?
Is it for me or Muna? No, it's for me, no?
Oh yeah, it's for you.
okay.
It's for you. I just thank Dr. Aditya and Jayashree for joining.
Oh, yeah, he's my good friend.
Yeah.
Thank you, Muna Sahab. Okay. Now you say allopathic medicines suppress, Ayurvedic medicines don't suppress. Correct? That's what you say. That's what the person says.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she wants to know. She wants to know the truthfulness. I mean, whether it is true
No,
or yeah.
see, you cannot paint all the things with the same brush. Okay. Now, when you are talking about allopathic drug, vis-a-vis Ayurvedic drug, first of all, allopathic drugs have very little role to play in acute conditions. Say, like you've got acute pneumonia, you've got acute gallbladder problem, you've got acute in the sense coming intensely in a very short period of time. That is acute in medical parlance. In contrast, you have dermatitis, you have got arthritis, you have got psychosomatic problems, you have got fibromyalgia. Yeah, all these things are chronic, and allopathy does not have a proper medicine because allopathy is only looking at the body part of your body, mind, and soul. Let me repeat: allopathy is only looking at what? The body part of your body, mind, and soul triad. Now, this is changing, which is very good. Now, if you do any search, including Google or any other search, more and more people in Harvard, Boston, etc., for example, or Yale or any of these, now they are waking up to the importance of body, mind, and soul trio concept, and they are putting more resources behind the body part, and they are not looking at only pumping in medicine. So much of the problem remains with the patient and the patient's mental makeup. And if they keep on pumping in medicine, naturally, suppose you have got arthritis, and the arthritis is not going to go away. And I come to you and say, after you take this tablet, they are all killing pain. How are they killing pain? They just suppress the feeling of pain. They cannot make that arthritis pain go away. Nobody, not even Brahma. Brahma has to come again to be born and then to make a new joint for you. So it's a wrong choice of medicines. So you cannot say allopathic medicine only suppresses, Ayurvedic does not suppress. That statement is absurd. You choose the right drug, yeah, and use it for the right period of time. It works, and that's it. Beyond that, nobody is asking you to keep on pumping in such painkillers. Like cholesterol drug, you have cholesterol नीचे लाने का कैसा रहेगा? You have got so many that people doesn't have any exercise. He can't even sit down and train. Train में बैठेगा भी नहीं. In the chair provided to him anywhere in the reception lounge, because his pumps are too big. So then what do you do? Keep on pumping in medicine. That's what the allopaths are doing. That is where I am entering the picture. I am an allopath. I am an MD in pharmacology, a hardcore allopath, which I practiced allopath for 20, 30, 40 years. Out of 70, 77 years, I have practiced over 50 years plus. Now you are choosing the wrong drug and then you blame the other guy. That's not all.
Thank you. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
We have an IT expert, John Raj, and his question is, he's from South India. His question is, we are used to traditional 3-4 meals with traditional breakfast, rice, roti, dal, sabji, etc. How do we count calories from traditional food, which is best way in moderation for common man with available food?
Good question. Very good question. This itself, now this has become a campaign, by the way. You know, intermittent fasting is the fad. You call it fad or you call it a new reality, but intermittent fasting, IF, is the new reality, new paradigm, new normal. Before I come to that, you can very easily find out the calorie value of any food, whether it is fried chicken or fish or meat or just soup or whatever. Formulae are available for you to calculate calories, and your dietitian will tell you. Your dietitians are there in almost all cities, all hospitals, even primary health centers are dietitians. You go and ask them, they'll give you the formula and give you the exact correct calories. So don't say you cannot calculate calories. You can, provided you have the interest in the willpower. Now, having said that, there's a more fundamental question of what do you do knowing the calories? यार मेरे को समझ में आ गया मैं 50 कॅलरी ज्यादा खा रहा हूँ मी 200 कॅलरी जास्त खातोय अरे करणार काय मग खायचं बंद कर खायचं बंद केलं तर त्रास होतो this is the catch-22 you simply cannot stop eating because you are going to get famished and you are going to collapse and you will have hypoglycemia etc. Now if you go to an expert person he will be able to give you the correct numbers, especially in intermittent fasting, which I'm repeating this, intermittent fasting is a very nicely developed and practiced concept. There are people available to tell you more details. I'm not a dietitian. Okay. Having said that, which is the first question that you asked now? Which is the first question?
No, John Ross' question. Now his question is, how do we count calories from traditional food?
Yeah, counting is possible.
No, before that.
Yeah, he'll count it for you. There was another question. Oh, that's it.
No, I think that's it.
Okay, so it is possible. Okay, now this is another point. If you are obese and if you want to do any control, yeah, you spread it out. Don't control only diet. Let me repeat, don't control only diet. You balance out your energy consumption in terms of what you are eating, and you balance it out with energy output, energy expenditure by doing something. What do you do? Go play badminton, or at least go and do Shirasasana or something. But do something. People don't want to do that. They want to say, I went on Falana diet, went on ketogenic diet. You don't need anything. In the good old days, Punjabis especially would eat 3, 4, 5, 6 parathas, heavily smeared with butter, and go out in the field and be in the field till 12 o'clock or even 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. That fellow has already burned all the calories he took. So you can't go and teach him to do this, do that. He says, I'm eating and I'm burning. The problem is we eat and we don't burn. And how to burn? So I'm getting hypoglycemic, I'm feeling weak, I'm feeling blah blah dizzy, I'll collapse. You won't collapse. If you follow the right method of eating in a controlled manner, which is where the intermittent fasting technique or recommendation has come about. You can Google and get a video. So the answer to both your questions are like this. Yes, you can get the calorie count. Yes, and yes, you have to balance your intake with your output. Now, intake output balancing, whether you are in a sick bed in a hospital or running around freely around the racing track, whatever, it is applicable. Intake also is applicable to ourselves in our life. What do you do in your office? How do you romanticize? How do you, etc., etc. Intake and output have to match. Isaiah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I hope I answered your questions.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir. Now we have Santosh Kale from Towel Engineering Group. First of all, he is grateful to BCB and Dr. Srinivasan for wonderful session. So that's what he has mentioned.
Thank you.
Now, his point is how to maintain high level of energy and enthusiasm throughout the day.
Good question. See, again, if you are looking for a magic wand or if you are looking for something to paint everything with the same brush, you are not going to get it. You are not going to get it. First of all, what is your constitutional makeup? There are some people who are born with genes for obesity. Now, no matter what you do at the age of 4, that poor guy, poor boy or girl is so obese you don't know what to do. And these are realities. And there are proper techniques available to cut down on calories and balance out energy intake and output. And they have to go through that. For marginal cases, only prevention will help. For example, if you have collected fat around your abdomen, and basically that's your issue. Most of your fat collection is around the abdominal area. Prevent it from collecting there. How can you prevent it? Then you think ahead, na? If your mom is going to pamper you with butter parathas, don't succumb to her love. There can be occasions when love can be dangerous. And many advices given by parents, or especially moms, can be really bad advice. So learn to use your discretion, learn to take proper medical advice in a sensible manner, and pay attention to both. And start early enough. Don't wake up after you cross 15, 16, 17 and you've got a huge truckload of fat sitting around your waist. Don't do that. No, you have to be a little proactive. It is possible. It is possible.
Sure. Thank you.
There's a lot of discipline. A lot of discipline. You require one Vishwamitra and one Vasishtha to come and give you discipline. Otherwise, it won't happen. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Now there's a common question from David Demonte and John Raj, so I've combined it. Now the point is, diseases happen because of excessive consumption of refined oil, salt, sugar.
Yes. Yeah.
So what is opinion on that?
Yeah. See, I'll quickly tell you again, I'm not a dietitian, but I can only answer you in a generalistic way, because I'm a pharmacologist, or I'm a generalist, not even a pharmacologist. So I can only give you a generalist answer, but specific, very sharp, very clear-cut answers are available. Now, let's go back to the question again, if you don't mind. Can you repeat the question, sir?
Yes. Now, question is, diseases happen because of excessive consumption of refined oil, salt, sugar, and sort of a white poison is the word.
Operating word is refined. Do you know the history of scurvy and the history of beriberi? Even when Australia as an island was being discovered by Captain Cook, he made 2 or 3 trips up and down, and his white staff members were given polished rice, which was looking very nice. All the whites ended up with beriberi, because you knocked off all the big vitamin B ration, and the poor Shudra guy was eating purple rice and even black rice, but that was very good in vitamin B content, and they were flourishing away. This fellow is so poor, but he has no problem. We are so rich, but we have problems. It started there. Basically, the moment you start refining, particularly refined carbohydrates, with oil, it's a different cup of tea, but with carbohydrates, the more refined you make it, the higher the glycemic index is. Glycemic index means supposing you eat something and your blood sugar goes up, and there is a way of measuring how much blood sugar goes up by eating what. It's again available in Google, but don't put down Google, because Google is good. It will tell you what it does with refined versus not refined things, and you modify, and you always take professional help. Sitting in a city like Mumbai or Pune or whatever, and if you can have rudimentary access to these basic facts, and they don't cost that much. The basic nutritional advice costs you very little. But take that advice and practice what is being told you. And you can very soon overcome the bad effects of refined carbohydrates and refined fats. We won't get deeper into that. Having said that, the golden rule of starting early in life is important. Now, how do you start early in life? For a kid, for a child, you start doing something and the mother of the child will come and bomb everything down. He says, "Madha mulga hai, chala khao de." You know, this, especially after marriage, mothers and daughters-in-law, they play havoc with the health of the husband. They say, "Hey, kiti chan distoy," you know, he's looking very handsome because his skin is all stretched. And deep down, he's collecting fat. That bloke is collecting fat. And 10 years down the line, the mother-in-law can't do anything, father-in-law can't do anything, you yourself can't do anything. That kind of thing. So it is the parents who create problems. It's the parents who create marital problems. Yeah. माझा मुलगा आहे त्याला असं वागू नको अरे तुला काय येतं like that, and they are ruining and spoiling and pampering the guy who doesn't deserve to be pampered at all. The fellow is so spineless, he can't stand up to his own mother and say, "Okay, mom, what my wife is saying is okay." अरे तेवढा बोलायला तुला अक्कल नाही आहे, मग घरी येऊन रडतोय आणि मग ते वजन वाढलंय, वजन वाढणारच ना, वजन जाणार कुठे तिकडेच राहणार. Okay, so it's like that, my dear friends. You're right, refined. Non-refined things are available, but cut down the oil, na yaar.
Yes, thank
You
you.
take oil, मगर refined मत काय को? What is this? Oil खाना है मत ऐसे क्या?
Thank you, sir.
I hope you didn't mind my informal way of.
No, I mean, that's fantastic, sir. I mean, that's how it has to be, sir.
Thank you.
Very friendly and very simple to understand. Not highly, I mean, complicated or technically difficult to digest. So very easy to understand.
Thank you very much.
So we end this question and answer session here. We are exactly at 6:15. And now I request Mr. Pius Miranda to go ahead with formal Thanksgiving.
Yes, thank you very much, Dinesh. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
First of all, let me thank Dr. Srinivasan for sharing his knowledge, educating us, guiding us, and showing us the importance of wellness, the scope for business in this wellness industry. And of course, there are many other things which Dr. Srinivasan shared with us, the importance of body, soul, mind, and many other things. Thanks committee members for organizing such a good event, webinar. We've been organizing for so many years. Then thanks BCBA members. And once again, Dr. Srinivasan, thank you very much. तुमचा वेळ दिला आम्हाला गाईड केल्याबद्दल. Thank you very much. Nilesh, over to Nilesh.
Thank you, Pius ji. And let me close with a small quote, and relevant quote, what I've gathered from the session. Sir, just check it whether it is correct or not. Poor health is not caused by something you don't have. It is caused by disturbing something that you already have.
Right.
Health is not something you need to get. It's something you have already if you don't disturb it.
Yeah.
So with this quote,
Very good, very nice.
yes, thank you, sir. And with this quote, we end this today's session formally. And if we can wait informally for next few minutes, if doctor is available, and if you have any questions, we can take over with doctor's permission. So I'll end the recording here, and we take it over further informally.